Good afternoon, everybody. Really awesome to have all of you here today. So I want to welcome you all for this showcase of ideas from everyday Singaporeans and people working in many different areas to design something or problem solve the difficulty experienced through COVID and improve the world around us. My name is Kai Seng. I'm really excited to be here and hosting this.
In this pandemic, we all have challenges, but each and every one of us actually take our time to think of a solution.
We are pushing the boundaries in this new norm and try out new things.
What we share in common is called just do attitude. You'll never know what will happen.
My takeaway from all this is tough times build tough people.
All right, okay, let me just set up my music. Ready? 20 seconds, suspended cycle, go! Stronger! Harder! Don't touch the floor! Come on, walk the water! Come on, come on, come on! Keep going, keep going! I've been an aqua instructor 21 years now. 3/4 of my job are aqua fitness classes and the rest are personal training. My clients range from as young as teenagers right up to their 90s. Nice and high. Go. Shoulders back. Keep your abs nice and tight. Engage your core muscle. Use your hands. The aqua Tabata class is high-intensity interval training in the water. It's a time workout. One Tabata round is 4 minutes. 20 seconds, work hard, with a 10 seconds break. So in this class, I actually do 8 rounds. Counting down, 5, 4, 3, 2, and rest. Woo! 10 seconds break. Nice one, ladies. So now we're gonna do white. White running.
The class is really good for cardio. So it's intensive, but it's also less impact on your body. I love to be able to work with Wiki.
She knows her participants' strengths and weaknesses. Aqua exercises is best suited for people of my age. I'm 50 this year. This has a very low impact on my joints.
Thank you, ladies. You did it. Well done. 8 Tabatas. How's your heart rate? You got it up? Yes. Yay. All right, I'm going to see you next week. Okay, have a good rest. Thank you so much.
Once the PM announced circuit breaker, with the closure of the swimming pools, my heart just dropped to the ground, thinking, what am I going to do?
Workplaces are shut except those in essential services.
Residents are urged to stay at home and only go out for essential reasons. It's the government's strictest measure yet to contain the spread of COVID-19.
I could still proceed with my one-on-one virtual personal training, but unfortunately that wasn't enough because 3/4 of my income comes from my aqua classes or my group exercise classes.
I did cry, thinking, how am I going to support my kids, right?
This is my family. This is my special daughter, Ifa Adriana. Ifa. My youngest son, Haziq Adam. My helper and Ifa's caregiver, Dariani. She's been with the family for the last 10 years. And missing here is my eldest son, Anik Johan. He's serving the National Service with the SCDF. Obviously, for my children, I had to put food on the table. So I had to find a way to teach my aqua fitness classes without a pool. The harder the challenge, the harder I fight back. So I was already thinking, many moves in aqua Tabata is demonstrated by the instructor using a chair. Maybe I can think of a Tabata session using a chair. The most important thing is the chair. It has to be stable, and when seated in an upright position, it forms a 90-degree angle at the legs, and it has to take their weight.
Hi everybody, good morning and welcome to our very first Chance Tabata workout.
So when I was planning the program itself, I would jot them down in my notebook. When I noticed that certain things did not work, I cancel. One of the movements I tried was side flutter. We do that in the water, sitting on the side, stabilize, posture, and we'll do flutter like so. I even added the arms, curling. It also assists in the balancing while on the chair. But it didn't work out. This one requires a little bit more strength in my participants, and I don't know how they would fare. I know them in the water, but I don't know how they are via Zoom and doing a chair tabata.
You get a chair that is stable.
It was challenging for me, just like to figure out the instructing and the safety aspect of the workout. So the additional challenge I faced was having everyone at home 24/7. That was very overwhelming for my daughter. She is diagnosed with global developmental delay, so she's not able to express how she feels. You can hear the background, that's actually Ifa. When her tantrums come up, she will start banging onto the door, screaming, and that is something that we go through every day. But thankfully, my sons and I, we are all fitness fanatics. We actually worked out as a family together with Ifa. So one of the exercises we did was to practice her sit and stand, equivalent to squat exercises for her lower body. With Ifa more occupied and calm, I was able to focus on fine-tuning the workouts for my chair tabata.
3, 2, 1,
Let's
go!
get on the floor. Come on, up. Chair style.
So when I started the chair tabata, I started with one session first.
It's okay to do on the floor. Challenge yourself. Squeeze.
I had 2 modifications for every workout. Level 1, on the floor, similar to the pool. And level 2 is suspended, getting your feet off the floor.
If you cannot do that, open and close. Your option. But if you can, ha, ha, ha.
It became 3 times a week. And as the months went by, I had income from the chair tabata on top of my handful of personal training virtual sessions. The pandemic is life-changing events, definitely. I may not be earning the same amount that I'm earning, but I had more time with my family, and I'm proud of how we pulled through together in these challenging times. If there's nothing else, I think I got stronger. Whenever anything happens, we shouldn't be down too long. We should just come up and move forward. Keep on fighting. I'm very sure opportunities are there. It's whether we want to grab it or not.
I am a P4 student and I am 10 years old this year.
Do you guys have anything after school today?
Yeah, science urban.
Let's listen to our usual channel.
So every day in the morning when I'm going to school with my brother, we will listen to the news on the radio.
Health officials have identified a highly infectious new strain of coronavirus as the cause of a deadly outbreak of a mysterious flu-like illness first reported.
When I heard about the coronavirus, at first I thought this was like the common flu, but now it has had a very big impact on the world. Like now we have to go out wearing a mask, having social distancing, and staying at home.
The number of infected frontline workers is also on the rise as they struggle to cope with the influx
And
of COVID-19.
when I heard about the frontline workers protecting us every day, I also wanted to play my part. I want my friends to learn how to keep themselves and the people around them safe from the virus. I also thought that it would be easier for them to remember the steps to keep themselves safe while playing it through a toy, like a board game, because I thought it would be more fun rather than listening to like talk or speeches.
Daniel is actually a very creative child. He also likes to read the science magazines. So when he looks at things, he sees them from a different angle. That's how he can come up with ideas for toys, because he has a very keen eye for detail.
So in my design, I decided to make a maze and to use the idea of the magnetic force of repulsion because we want to repel the virus, not attract it. And the goal is for the player to use a sword with a magnet attached to chase the virus counter through the maze. But when I tried it out, it was a little bit too easy. So I told my brother about the idea and he helped me elaborate, making it more interesting and fun. My brother and I added in obstacles like gates. We also decided to put magnets on them so that we could repel them open and let the virus magnet continue moving through our maze. We also decided to add mini quests, and then my family thought of a few ideas for the names, and after that we all voted for Virus Repel as the name of the toy. So this is my board game. You move the virus through the quests. Like the first one is keep a distance to prevent droplet transmission. So passing through each quest is like a pit stop of reminders on how to keep safe from the virus. But before reaching each quest, you have to use the sword to open the gate. And you win the game by reaching the end of the maze in the fastest time against other players. So one difficulty I faced was because it was the circuit breaker, I couldn't go outside and find the materials to make my toy. So we had to go around the house on a mini treasure hunt and find these materials.
We tried magnets like those on the fridge, but they were not strong enough.
In the end, we decided to use these as our virus magnet, as these are of the correct size and they will be able to be repelled through the game properly.
Do you remember when you first started, we tried using the cardboard sheets as the barriers? We tried to put magnets on them and tried to slide them also, but there was just too much friction. So in the end, we tried with ice cream sticks and they actually worked better. So it was very much a trial and error process because we had limited amount of resources and materials available at home.
Okay, great. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, judges. I am Kwong Ian Daniel. My school decided to take part in this creative toy competition.
The Sony Creative Science Award is a competition that allows children to create toys based on a science concept that is chosen.
So I decided to submit Virus Repel for the competition. I had to come up with a speech over Zoom with the judges and explain how my toy works. There are two ways to play my toy. The first is to see who can...
You're so cute.
For the final results, I came out as... what place was it again? I forgot.
When he was awarded the Commendation Award, we were actually very happy for him, very proud of what he has done.
He was the youngest in the category, so yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Okay, come. Let me time both of you and see who can finish it the fastest. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Get set, go.
Because of the social distancing measures, most of my friends couldn't play. But after the circuit breaker, my cousins came over for Christmas to play. And then we'll all have like competitions among us. But I am happiest about getting to spend time with my family when they helped me make Virus Repel.
Oh, 2 seconds. At least that's a big improvement.
I'm a designer at Stark. We are a team of product and experience designers. The company primarily works in innovation of both physical and digital products. My role is to ask questions in the pursuit of finding not just what might be better solutions, but sometimes better ways to look at things. So at the start of the pandemic, we had quite a few projects that were COVID-related. As the number of COVID-19 cases rose, the hospitals that we worked with really were trying to look at how they can limit the spread of virus within. The key challenge is when they had to transfer a patient who was COVID positive, The hospital had to go through a very lengthy process of disinfection if they moved patients without any shields to contain the potentially infectious droplets. Since just wearing a mask didn't cut it, due to the strict disinfection protocols, so it was very laborious for them. So we thought, what if you could have something that you could very easily put onto patients that forms some of airtight seal, but keep it really clean and simple, also because it needed to be disinfected and really low cost. That was the starting point for the design of the X hood, the transfer hood for patients who are COVID positive. This shape was already kind of figured out. If the duration of transfer is too long, then we potentially have a hazard where the person won't be able to have enough oxygen.
Yeah, I think we were looking for something that wasn't a mechanical solution for introducing air into the hood.
Yeah. Together with my team, we figured out the shape and the dimensions that would allow sufficient air supply as we were prototyping the X hood. But during the circuit breaker, we had to work on the prototypes from our homes. Where it's challenging is when we were trying quite a lot of different materials for this without having to touch and feel. So once the team had figured out what kind of dimensions to use, that's when I started to advise them on what materials we can get. I was quite familiar with different kind of stretch materials which had enough elasticity, enough of a vapor barrier as well. So we were ordering some of those laminates as well as plastic materials such as TPU, which have very good stretch qualities. Later on in the process, we really wanted a product which was a little bit more finished. At the onset, we thought that because it needs to be a moisture barrier, we actually brought in some of these rubber gaskets, but it gave this very kind of gas mask kind of aesthetic, which we didn't like. So in the end, what we opted for was a fabric edge with sewing and stitching, which was a lot more kind of friendly looking. Made the construction a lot easier as well. Yeah, that's kind of the final outcome. The key challenge here is it's not so easy to test everything. So as another colleague is working on a part of the X hood, so you have colleagues taking videos of themselves putting it on, sometimes getting their family members to put it on. So I have two kids, two smaller kids, and they're always curious about what I do. They see the prototypes that I bring back and they want to be a part of it. Eventually, they became our testers. This is the smaller one playing spaceman in bed with the hood on. It's like, okay, go and have fun. You guys see whether you can destroy it. The team was working on the COVID initiatives out of their own time, their own passion. And at a time like this, it really makes sense to be able to use it to, be a force for good. We're on board with Open COVID Call, this Creative Commons license specifically for innovations during the pandemic. And we did this to make our COVID-related designs, like the X hood, available to be used for free. The philosophy that means a lot to me is to make sure that we don't create innovation to be more complicated. As a product that's meant to help, it needed to be in a format that's easy for people to replicate, or that will be potential for other adaptations to it.
Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has promised to take care of the needs of migrant workers, as escalating infections have made them some of the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hi, hello. My name is Alan. Come on in. So I'm an architect based in Singapore as a design studio, and this is where the magic happens. And up here, that's where I stay. Oh, that's a no-go zone. Ever since I was young, I like to tear things down, deconstructing things instead of building up more and more walls. My childhood memory was just amazing. I'm always surrounded with a lot of friends and families. So for me, it's so important to create thoughtful design, something that's meaningful and purposeful. One of the key driving forces in the construction industry are the migrant workers. We have seen how they live in a cramped condition. So when COVID happens, there's a spike in the number of COVID cases among our migrant workers in Singapore. They had to be isolated. So I put myself into the shoes of the migrant workers. When you get isolated, how do you feel? They use a lot of solid panel walls for the isolation facilities. And in a time of crisis like this, I don't think anyone wants to feel alone. So what else can you do, right? Maybe there's an alternative to those opaque panels. So I thought, why not create a new temporary modular shelter design using a translucent material? And they have been staying together closely, so they have a great level of tolerance when it comes to privacy. Using a translucent material can keep them isolated, but at the same time they know that they are next to someone. And we can modularize it as long as how we want it to be. But from there, I developed the blueprint of this temporary modular shelter within a week or so. These are like my brainstorm buddies.
Each of us bring different things to the table. Like Alan thinks in the big picture mode. Vivian and I have to look at that picture and then think, how do we make it a reality? At the same time, we were concerned about materials that's readily available in Singapore, so that it can be rapidly implemented.
Yeah, and because we were worried about the urgency of the situation, and then one of the design consideration was it can be built with very little manpower because we were having manpower crunch.
The construction technique has to be very simple. And with this criteria in our plan, we received the government support to work on my design of a temporary modular shelter for the migrant workers who had to be isolated. So we actually created the real actual mock-up, 6 meters square of space that is compliant to the regulation. And that was to showcase the key feature of my design, which was walls that was made out of translucent materials that were attached to the timber frames. To join the timber frames, we designed wooden brackets that can fit together like jigsaw pieces without using nails, so it could be easily assembled with little manpower. But due to the pandemic, we were not sure of the availability of all the materials. So we have to be ready for it, the worst case situation. No, it's too opaque. Need to have something that's more translucent, yeah.
Actually can do translucent canvas.
Yeah. So I approached the contractor that always help us out solving many problems that we have in construction to see what are the different materials that can come into play. So we considered timber because it's easily available at that time.
But we had very little time to create a lot of units. So we ended up using steel because we can actually prefabricate them in the factory. Whereas for wood, there's a lot more work that has to be done on site.
The timber itself is bulkier, chunkier, versus steel, which is actually lighter. So we scrapped our original plan of using timber frames joined by wooden brackets and replaced them with the prefabricated steel frames.
Our solution for the steel frame was to use cable tie. So we had eyelets on the canvas, and then we actually just cable tie it to the structure. So it was a very fast and easy to install kind of method.
And once we had finalized the materials for the design, we built the temporary modular shelter in an underused car park space. We managed to get about 3,000 beds up and running for the migrant workers. As you can see that these are very easy to construct. It took us like less than 20 minutes to put them together, just a portion. In the larger scheme of things, this was not just a temporary shelter. It's an effort for us to show the migrant workers here that we care for their welfare, including their mental well-being. I like the idea of communities coming together to do good. And also I realized that architecture is like an instrument for these symbiotic processes to take place.
So we're going to put a base color, and the base color is like wearing your underwear, okay? So each painting also have underwear. I'm an art instructor. I conduct art workshops for different ages and with different mediums like acrylic, watercolor, oil pastel, and charcoal.
分手以后，你这边有一些我的。
I started Art Tribe in 2019. We'll conduct classes at the Senior Care Centre nearby. Or some of the seniors will come to our art class here to do paintings for free. So the Art Tribe concept is very simple. We give them opportunities to create and we give them the confidence to create as well. After 3-4 months, they will acquire all these basic techniques. When COVID-19 happens in Singapore, my senior activities got to stop. The studio was closed for 2 months, and somehow I was like thinking, I wonder how are my seniors doing? Because the seniors are the most vulnerable group during this period. So I decided to WhatsApp video call one of the seniors. I just, hey, are you free now? She said, yeah, I'm free. Why? Hey, take out your watercolor set. Then she said, watercolor set? I said, come, let's do painting. And the auntie, okay, let's do. Wow, they're very spontaneous. So this is where I start to introduce all the watercolor online stuff to the rest of the seniors. Hi, Maria. How are you? Yeah, shall we start painting? Today we're going to paint carrots. You agar-agar, right? Okay? So you draw maybe less than 1 minute on the carrots. The reason why we use WhatsApp instead of Zoom, because the WhatsApp is much direct. Zoom, you still need to have those PIN code, email address, then they scan, they anyhow click then scan, you know? This is what their fear. Have you eaten?
No, I just had porridge. Actually, because today I'm going for staycation.
You staycation with who?
With my niece and my sisters.
Wow, nice. It became very frequent, it's like once a week to twice a week. And once they are done, they have to take photo of the image and show it to me. And then I'll give them feedback. Can see. Wow, looking good. So what you need to do, you just need to add in. I was teaching 4 to 5 seniors alone over 2 months during the circuit breaker. It became very organic. They'll paint maybe around 4 to 10 images a week. So during these 2 months, right, the seniors created, wow, I think around 30 or 40 artwork. And they really love it. So I was thinking, what if we can reach out to more seniors, but I will need a team to get more seniors to join. So that's when I recruit all my own group of friends, or you can say my instructors from our studio to join me to reach out to more seniors.
Hi. We are about to start the class.
So for the second round, we taught 26 seniors, and a few of them became our own instructors to share with their own communities. And one of them is Maria.
Today we are drawing flowers, so all was quite excited.
So they can draw as many flowers as they like, right?
Yeah. 这个笔给你，可以用的。好，说今天你要画这个，因为你选这个是吗？那片 ，OK。This is my first and this is my last painting with Art Tribe. Before Art Tribe, I have never picked up a paintbrush before. So I really didn't want to stop because I think I cannot stop. And I thought, why not set up a group here so it can continue? 自由画啦，好，可以自由画。
So arts help people during this pandemic to embrace whatever you have in the surrounding. Because as you create art, you start to do a lot of observations and appreciate the beauty of your surrounding as well. So how I see Art Tribe in the future is that hopefully you can branch it out to every corner of Singapore for the seniors. And if it goes well, we want to reach out to youth at risk. So it will be much more of communal art space for the people. So it's just like a very kampong spirit using arts to connect the people.
Scientists have found that the SARS-CoV-2 virus can spread through contaminated surfaces that are frequently touched, and precautionary regular disinfection of these surfaces is recommended.
I'm working as a creative technologist. A creative technologist is like a hybrid between a designer and a coder, so I act as a bridge between these two parties right now. So at that point of time, the understanding of COVID was being passed by physical contact, and people got so paranoid about touching shared public surfaces. These were the early days of COVID when people were trying all kinds of weird methods of not touching the lift buttons. So I thought of creating a touchless button. But for those touchless buttons in the market right now, they lack communication with the users. When you wave your hand across it, if the button is spoiled, the door doesn't open and it doesn't give you back a signal that this is actually still working. So I actually worked with the team to come up with the idea of connected touchless button to integrate back the physicalness of it. And from there, you'll get a very natural feedback. This is actually still working. But because it was the circuit breaker period, I actually faced a lot of problems because I was missing a lot of parts at home. So I actually had to use simpler tools and simpler sensors in order to make this connected touchless work. So I managed to salvage a few of these, what we call a distance sensor. This is emitting out infrared, and the sensor is able to tell how far the object in front of it is, and then communicate onto the MCU, which stands for a microcontroller unit, and this is the brain of the whole circuitry. So through this little prototype, I'm able to fine-tune how far should I start activating my state of the buttons. Should I do it this far or should I do it this near? So once I have all the values that I require for this sensing system, the little MCU over here will send a signal to a servo, a small little motor like this, to move the button forward and back. And only after a circuit breaker, I went to a hardware store and bought everything. I bought a soldering iron and even simple things like a wire stripper, and now I think my house is more well equipped than the office. When I was back in the office, I was able to build this final prototype. We needed to fit this into the lift panel itself, so we cut it down and miniaturized this into the final form. Because we were short of parts, so we only have this. These are called new pixel lights.
I was thinking why remove? So flowery. Wow.
Then you reach the end. So after we placed the video online, we managed to get a lot of feedback from the public. And my hope is that the kinetic touchless button will be a common sight in lifts all around Singapore, with or without the flowery lights.
I've spent more than 18 years or so in the field of infectious disease, conducting research on different aspects of different pathogens, trying to understand how they infect people. At the heart of it all, I'm a life scientist. My role here is to lead the research and all the operations of drug development for infectious disease. And we specialize in creating these drugs from engineered antibodies. So let me explain to you how antibodies work. They are extremely important parts of our immune system, and they help fight off a lot of the germs and pathogens that attack us every day. Our immune system generates millions of different kinds of these antibodies. So it's like your body's a locksmith trying to figure out which is the best key that fits the lock, which is our pathogen. We demonstrated that we could develop antibody treatments rapidly. When we developed a treatment for Zika within 9 months, the typical timeline, by the way, is more than 18 months. We then took this to the next level where we leveraged what we had learned from our Zika program to develop a treatment for yellow fever within 7 months.
In just 2 months, China now has 10,000 cases of the virus.
So when we first heard about the pandemic, it was mostly restricted to China, and we hadn't yet had any cases come into Singapore.
On top of the positive cases, the country has 15,000 suspected cases.
So there was this sense of panic without people really knowing what the real concern was. So amidst this worsening situation, we were approached to rapidly create an antibody treatment for the new virus. At the time we started this, the actual structure of the SARS-CoV-2 virus was unknown. That was the biggest challenge, working with the least amount of data. As you know, very soon after that, the first cases were identified in Singapore. We were worried for our families. There was a lot riding on what we were doing. And once the virus was isolated from patients in Singapore, there was a flurry of activities in developing a game plan, how we would possibly develop a therapeutic for COVID.
Do you remember that first batch of antibodies that we produced? That essentially...
The one that kind of... Debbie, she is leading the research team. Our plans keep changing. That Debbie knows very well.
Absolutely.
Our plans change halfway.
Plans would often change depending on new information generated in the laboratory.
So to start, when you design an antibody, it's important to figure out what is the best place in the virus to target. The spike protein is the Achilles heel of the virus. Our job is to disrupt this binding of the spike protein with the host target.
But of course, it's a key area for the virus to mutate and escape detection.
Exactly. This is the region that the virus keeps trying to change in order to become better at infecting. And that's exactly what's happened now with all the variants that have come up. But there are other parts of the spike protein whose job is to hold the structure. The virus cannot change these. So we targeted these regions to design an antibody. But this is typically not a smooth process because we've had quite a lot of failures where things didn't work exactly the way we expected it to.
The number of fatalities from the coronavirus worldwide has reached the grim milestone of over 1 million deaths.
As the fatalities started mounting, what we all felt acutely was this feeling that if we have a molecule, it could make a difference, it could save lives. For me, both the fact that it was in Singapore, where my immediate family, as well as back in India, where my extended family was. And that, of course, gave me this extra sense of urgency to develop something as soon as possible. We worked with hundreds of antibody candidates. And so many times we ended up taking molecules that eventually were not suitable. It gave us a lot of frustration and disappointment. So this was emotionally draining compared to a normal drug development where you can be a little bit detached from the drug development process. Eventually, we started to finally figure out that there's a certain class of antibodies that we have developed. They are neutralizing the virus. Finally, we designated TY027 because of a confluence of many properties that it had. Not only its activity, but its stability, our ability to manufacture it. We very rapidly demonstrated that the molecule was safe. In fact, TY027 is the first antibody treatment developed in Singapore that is now in the final stage of human trials in less than a year since we started searching for an antibody treatment against COVID-19.
Oh, who's looking forward to lunch today? What are you having today? It's all that hard work.
Certainly. I'm starving, for sure. So to put it simply, under normal times, this iterative process would take months. And really, within a period of 4 to 6 weeks, we had identified our candidates. And so in this, the team was very critical because it was a highly synchronized process. I mean, I must say this was like when you start your sentence and someone else finishes it. Most of the times when we do drug development, these were treatments for diseases that were in a faraway place. But when COVID came, it struck really close to home. It was especially a personal sense of wanting to make a difference in this.
2020 was really an eventful year. As we all know, the pandemic happened, and it was also the year that I turned 30. So for me, it was a point of self-reflection. I was working in a multinational corporation, analyzing sales data of the Southeast Asian region. I enjoyed my time there, but I didn't feel very fulfilled. I've always struggled to identify a career path that I'm passionate about. And during the circuit breaker, I read a lot of self-help articles and watched a lot of YouTube videos on trying to find yourself. And I came to the realization that I wanted to start my own business, and that's how I got started on the entrepreneurial side of it. So during the circuit breaker, the only times I would go out is really just to get food. When I was taking away food, sometimes the aunties would sneak disposable cutlery. I wouldn't realize it, but I had my own cutleries at home, so it ended up just stockpiling in my house. It came to a point where I had to throw them away because it was just clutter. Over the period of a month, I looked at the amount of cutlery I collected that I never ended up using, thinking about the number of people in Singapore and multiplying it by that amount. That to me was an astronomical sum. I thought, what if we had edible cutleries in Singapore? We could potentially have saved all this waste that's being accumulated. The first recipe for my edible spoon creation was based on a hardtack recipe. It's flour, salt, oil and water. Hardtack is an ancient form of biscuit that is super hard. I found a recipe in the course of just Googling around, and the reason for its existence is as rations during sea voyages of the past. So these biscuits are meant to last for years. I thought, this could potentially be a good starting point if we were trying to make your own edible cutlery. So this is how a dough would look like. As you can see, it's just putting all the ingredients together, and we flatten it and you put them on a mold plate. It's very easily available. You can buy it at most supermarkets for a few cents. So what I would do back then was to put it in between and cut round the edges. So that's it. And now this is ready to be popped into the oven. After it's baked, it will be an edible spoon. So this was made all the way back in April 2020. I came up with this crazy idea that because I wanted to be eco-friendly, it should be green. The feedback I got was it looked like a moss-covered spoon, which wasn't very appealing to eat. I realized that having an edible cutlery in itself isn't sufficient. To make it more exciting, I actually put in some fun fruity flavors. So our strawberry spoons, for example, we have freeze-dried strawberries in it. And for the blue pea lychee, I actually put in ground up blue pea. So in addition to coming up with fun flavors, I realized that it was a really good way to incorporate nutrition into the product itself. In some of the products, I actually use psyllium husk and almonds in some of the formulations. But the mainstay of our product is the chia and flax seeds. You can see it in every one of our products. My efforts worked, and I was baking a couple of hundred spoons on the weekend. And then the paper ran a story about me. And after that, I got an exponential amount of orders, and I was like, did I want to keep this a side business? Can this be a full-time career? I look at what my parents went through. My dad was a business owner, and that didn't work out very well for him. So I understood firsthand the implications of a family going bankrupt. That's a huge risk to take on. But he could allocate his times and say, I want to spend this time with my family instead of working in the office. I could see the benefit of being a business owner. I decided it was worth it to take the plunge. Crunch Cutlery currently produces between 2,000 to 4,000 units a month. And I've also come up with a new design, which is a combination of a spoon and a fork called Little Crunch. And in the second half of the year, we hope to launch that. So without the restrictions that was imposed due to COVID-19, I probably wouldn't dig deep and try and think back about my past. So I think it's a catch-22 because I obviously wish COVID never happened because it has impacted so many lives. But if it weren't for COVID, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you about my business plan.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are coming here today to really give you a reason to meet each other, share, and maybe even pollinate ideas for each other. And it's also a big tribute for all of you. And to share this sentiment, we have a special guest today. This is Su Ying, President of the Design Business Chamber, Singapore.
Indeed, it is my privilege to be here to celebrate your diversity of the innovations. You all come from different backgrounds, but one common thread that I notice is that all of you have approached COVID-related problem solving passionately because you are addressing issues that are at the heart of the pandemic.
Having met the whole bunch of creatives here, this is great. We all kind of like alike in the ways that we collaborate to create more possibilities.
So even your hands are filled with groceries and stuff, right? You'll still be able to activate this.
There have been no shortages of opinions and ideas during the pandemic, but to go from idea to putting something out there, behind that lies some level of commitment.
Hey Daniel, I heard you wanted to speak to Nandu. Unfortunately, he can't be with us, so let's give him a call. Huh?
Okay.
Hello. Here you go.
So, hello Mr. Nandu. I am good. Nice to meet you. So, may I ask you a few questions about your idea?
Of course.
When will TY027 be approved as a COVID-19 treatment?
Great question. So TY027 is currently in clinical trials.
So having met such wonderful people with different ideas, I think what we all share is creativity, tenacity, and out-of-the-box thinking in trying to solve the different problems we face.
So this time I must go faster. Right? I love challenges. The main thing about creativity is we need time to grow. It's there. We have all the seeds there. You just need someone to water it and let it bloom. Yeah.
If ever someone said that, okay, Singaporeans are not creative enough, they should look at us deeper, right? We might be a red dot, but we have so much to give back.